Hey everybody, how you doing today? So, I've got an interesting one for us. You see, I got a game coming up soon, and I need a swamp, and I don't have anything for a swamp. So, obviously that means I've only got one option. I need to build a swamp board. Yeah. So, let's not delay. Let's get into building a swamp board. So I start this build by just finding a piece of XPS board that I got, and I measure it to 28 inches down and 4 foot across and just score it quick with my knife. Then I just break it off and move it on over here to my workbench. The workbench, I'm going to start just drawing out and kind of mapping the terrain, what I want it to look like. And once that's all done, I'll figure out how I'm going to, well, carve it all out, I guess. I kind of want this to have some little islands in it and a couple big islands and basically look like a giant waterway. In case I don't want it to be just a swamp board, if I need it to be a river or something, I can throw it out there and say it's a river. I decide not to use acetones or anything to get out the shape here. I decide that I'm going to use a little trick that I'd seen other people use and kind of wish I'd tested a few times first before doing this. Pull out my Dremel, and I put on one of the grinding stones, and I just start to grind away the XPF foam and get down about 1/4 of an inch. Again, I wish I did a little bit more practicing because some of this ends up a little deeper than I intended, but overall I really loved the way the shape was made, and it gives these unique textures into the water areas. The one downfall to this, unfortunately, is that I got a lot of pink dust everywhere and ended up having to move this outside to finish it. Now, the look of the waterways and stuff was a little ragged after the Dremel, so I take my heat gun here and I just run it along the waterways, and it actually smooths everything down and puts a unique little sheen on things that I really liked. Honestly, I think I might use this to try and make a wasteland or desert board in the future. As you can see, it adds a unique texture to it that almost looks like it's a topographical and 3D geographical map. I really like that. Now, we're going to put on our usual black paint and Mod Podge mixture and seal this all up. We want to seal it well, because we are going to be putting on a lot of diluted glue, which means a lot of water, other liquids here that are going to be involved in this board. So you can do this in several coats, or like me, just dump it on very thick and apply it liberally as you possibly can. It's not going to cover up any of the textures, especially if you use that Dremel method. And after everything's done, it's going to look pretty slick in my opinion. But as always, everything looks good in black. There are a ton of nook and crannies to dig into on this one as well. Taking a nice light yellow now, and I'm just going to run this all around the areas where essentially sand or the bottom of the water, lakes, ponds, river, bogginess, whatever you're going to be doing with this is. And at the bottom of that, we want to make sure that it's diluted. I'm just using regular craft paint too. I'm not using anything special, but I am diluting it. So it's probably about 1/3 of this is actually water, and it does take 3 or 4 goes to get the water areas and waterways properly covered with this yellowy sandish color. But once it's done, it'll look really good and it'll withstand what comes next. Now I'm applying a dry brushing here of neon green. Now that's going to sound a little weird, but because I want it swampy, I think the ridges looking neon green will look like moss or other algae or other things growing underneath the water. My problem was I discovered that my normal dry brushing method was not actually applying any real noticeable coloring like I needed. So I switched over to that 2-inch paintbrush again and started dry brushing everything with the neon green via it. And honestly, it did a great job. It really made everything, just all the ridges pop with like this neon green. And this is why we said to go over it a couple times with that light yellow, because this neon green, if you use neon green, if you use white or brown or anything else, it's going to dilute it, and you need it to stand up a little bit. So one of the issues of using a big piece of board like this is it can curl. Not always going to happen, but sometimes it will. I'm not going to risk anything, and I am taking a ton of glue on a piece of small little bit of Luan board I have, and I'm just going to dip a 2-inch paintbrush in water here and just cover everything with PVA glue before sticking the game board down onto it with some weight, because I don't want it to move. This is also going to help it keep its shape. It won't curl, and it won't move on a table when it's applied to it. When you place down your board, make sure to add some weights, and make sure you go through and make sure everywhere is sticking nice and tight to it. As you can see, I'm making sure everything's pressed firmly up and down, and I'll even hold it there for a little bit. This is sped up until it sticks for a while. You don't want this coming off that board. Okay, now comes what I said about why we wanted this so sealed. I'm taking a ton of diluted, just 2 parts glue, 1 part water glue here. I'm spreading it around with a little thin brush that I have. This one's probably about an inch brush, not that 2-inch brush. And then I am going to apply, yeah, that's right, the coffee grounds that I've made before in the past that I use for dirt. And we're just going to start applying them here in the water first because, well, it'll be easier to not have to lean over everything to get those islands done. And it's going to look good. You want to cover every bit of the exposed top layer in black here. Do not skimp yourself. And if you need to go back over, again, do it. You want this to be dirt. This is going to be that muddy dirt of a water, wetlands area, bog area, swamp area. And we're going to add more tricks to this as we go. But as you can see right here, I'm just applying those coffee grounds. If you're wondering, these are used coffee grounds, actually. Used coffee ground, I spread them out on a cookie sheet and I dry them out at an extremely low temperature for a long time to get them that more dirt look than, fresh coffee ground look. Just taking a can of high gloss Mod Podge here, the aerosol kind. I'm going to spray it all over the board to add a little shine to it and to help seal the coffee grounds on. And it'll make them look a little muddy. Here I'm just taking diluted, glue and water as always. And I'm picking out a few spots and I'm spreading it around, and I'm taking some ground effects dry, they call it dry ground, and I'm applying that to give me some contrast and texture differences between the muddy dirt and areas where grass and other things are going to spottily grow. As you can see here, I'm going to pick out some spots. I'm just going to take my static grass here and apply it directly. I'll start in the center because I don't want to have to lean over the ones I've done on the side and wreck them somehow. It's just easier to work from the center and my way out to the edges with static grass and dry dirt applications and anything like that. And static grass is actually a combination of dark green, a lot of bright green, a little bit of yellow grass, because I do want some color variations in this board. I just don't want it all brown and light brown and then the water being the only real splash of color. I want there to be some variations in color. I live in Northwest Ohio, and we have something called Mesker's Marsh and Crane Creek. And if I go out there, there's a lot of different colors in those areas. And I kind of wanted to do a generic version of that without adding too much to this board. Just the grass and the other things. That way, if I need to add any buildings or any scatter terrain I've made on top of it to make a different look or a scene, I can. But I still want color. I still want variation in things. The technique I used, I don't know how to explain this, but it's kind of like the board itself showed me where I should be applying this. It's a weird way to explain it. Doesn't make much sense to try for me to explain it, but it's a feeling you can get when you're looking at a board or something you're creating. You just kind of see where things should be applied. In this case, when I got to the outer edges, I thought, and it looked like grass should maybe be a little bit more abundant on the edges of places. You just see it going as I go. So it took me probably a few days to figure out what to do for the water, as I have some all-game terrain realistic water effects, but nowhere near enough to do this board. And the board was a little too deep in spots for me to use it. So, just some long thinking and some internet ordering, came to the conclusion UV resin was my best guess. So I applied it at first in thin layers. Actually, at first I applied it in one big thick goop there, and it didn't end up as well as I'd hoped. A lot of bubbles appeared at the bottom and in between. So I switched my tactics, and I started to apply a thin layer first. Spread it out with a popsicle stick that I had, trying to make it as thin as possible, and then hit it with the UV light, hoping to create a small little barrier between the foam and the applied next levels of resin to cut down on the air bubbles. And that did help, but again, it didn't quite stop air bubbles from appearing. Even taking a lighter over didn't help much. And, well, to be fair, it took a long time. I have the speed up here insanely high, and I was standing here for a good 15 minutes. So it ended up getting to where it was like apply a little bit, shoot it with the UV light to reduce the amount of time I have to stand here. Apply a little bit, shoot it with the UV light so I don't have to stand here forever. Apply a little bit, shoot it with the UV light so I don't have to stand here for a little bit. It was insane. But again, the final product, in my opinion, was worth it. Between the paint and the UV resin, this ended up looking like great water. But things aren't quite done yet. I've got another step. We're going to take watered down glossy Mod Podge and hit all those exposed coffee grounds to give them more of a mud look before we're done. Now, let's take a look at that finished product after we put in all this hard work. In the cool, crisp air of the bog, the party finds themselves escorting a lone merchant and his pack tortoise, as they are ambushed by a squad of bullywogs who demand payment for their trespasses into this swamp. party stands ready to defend Sissel unless somebody has some way to de-escalate it. Oh, man, that took a moment. Okay, so now with that guy all finished and said and done, I can get ready for the game night coming up. The only issue with that, on all honesty, now I want to make more scatter terrain for it. Well, if you guys like this, please hit that like button. Maybe share this video with a few friends. Drop me a comment telling me that you liked it or, you hate the sound of my voice or anything. And if you really do enjoy this, hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell for notifications. My videos come out at least once a month, depending on what's going on in my real life. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I appreciate every second you spend with me. Get out there and craft something awesome.